We are live here at New York City's localbozo.com. On our line right now, frontman of Soul Asylum. He's written some of the greatest songs in the history of alternative and rock music, and punk for that matter, Mr. Dave Pirner. Dave, can't thank you enough for your time today, man.
No problemo, my man.
All right, Dave, let's talk first about the upcoming Summerland tour. How did Soul Asylum get linked up with the guys in Eve 6, Space Hog, and of course Everclear? Who approached you guys to get involved, and how did the lineup take shape?
We did this same tour, I think, 2 summers ago. So maybe it was 3 summers ago. So we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, and we wouldn't be doing it again if we didn't have a good time. The last time we went out with Everclear, and to be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about some of the other bands. I think we were out with Cracker and Everclear last time we were out. Anyways, it's a blast. It's all outdoor, running around the whole country. It's 47 shows in 50 days, I think, is the first stretch, which is, a lot for anyone, but I'm really looking forward to it.
You know, these shows really seem to have a good vibe to them, a feel-good vibe. I don't want to use the word nostalgic, but it's a throwback of sorts, and you can't help but listen to the music and reminisce about the old times. Did the band have any trepidation about getting involved with this tour, considering that you guys are still pumping out new albums?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's the part of it that's a little bit like the part of being in a band these days that pays the rent. And if the worst thing I have to do is play my tunes for a crowd that's not a bar crowd, it's not that bad, and parts of it are really great. I particularly like playing Soul Asylum music for people that are 10 and under. That part of it I really, really like. I really like seeing really young people at the shows, and there's just something to it for me. There's something to somebody that has no pretensions, that's experiencing music like that, who will come back and go, oh, this is our son or our daughter's first concert. And that seems really cool to me. I just go, wow, that is a significant thing for me to play somebody's first concert. So I understand what you're saying, and, last summer we toured Grave Dancers Union, which seemed even more nostalgic to me, and I kind of hate nostalgia, and I kind of hate the idea that, I'm expected to do anything on a tour, and how the band started out as a punk band. And, you could celebrate the catharticness of being in a band by really just going on stage and treating it like it's performance art, like really doing anything other than playing a song that people want to hear. And that's a different kind of challenge for the audience. So there is that. I think that, we're going out this summer and we're playing to crowds that expect a certain thing, and that kind of disappoints me. If that's what you mean, that's what I'm asking the question for, right?
Sure,
it's really great to have a job at all, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's funny that you should say that. The first concert that I ever went to was a Soul Asylum show with Matthew Sweet. It was at the PNC Bank Art Center. I guess it was the Garden State Art Center in Holmdel, New Jersey back in the day. First ever rock concert I ever went to, and I can't even tell you what an influence that had on me personally.
Oh, that's great. We went out with Matthew again last summer, so that's kind of funny. It was a bit of an anniversary of that, for sure. That was Matthew, and Victoria Williams was involved in that. Am I right? Yeah. The Jayhawks.
Right. And Victoria Williams and the Jayhawks, yep.
Not a bad first gig at all.
Now, just a few short days from now, the Summerland Tour arrives locally here at New York City's Irving Plaza on Tuesday, June 17th. Soul Asylum has incredibly been around for about 3 decades. What are some of your memories of playing here in Manhattan?
I mean, I saw Irving Plaza on the schedule, and I just went, there's certain venues in America that the band, like you say, has been pounding forever. for decades. And I remember very clearly the first time I played Irving Plaza, and it moved locations a couple times around the first time we were playing in that place. And there's from CBGB's on down to, really kind of finding a new spot at the Bowery Ballroom. And when the band first got signed to a major label, the whole idea was to spend as much time in Manhattan as possible. I think we were all excited about being there, and the label was there, and we were all from Minneapolis and had never tasted good food before, and all of a sudden we were being taken out to dinner on a major label's expense account in New York City, and it really was like opening up the adult world to me, or something, the world where people enjoyed something other than macaroni and cheese in a box. And, that part of it was really interesting. And I discovered what it's like to be at a nightclub that's open after 2 a.m, which was not the case in Minneapolis when I was 19 or 20. So all these kind of things happened to me in New York City, all these kind of early coming of age, being a punk rocker in Hoboken and staying on people's floors and doing all these, learning about drugs. I have lots of really, really fond memories, and, can't wait to, I fly the I Heart New York flag, and, it was the first place I wanted my kid to see, and I took him there when he was almost too young to appreciate it, but it's something that he'll remember, because you can't not get that impression of just looking up. There's things you don't remember when you're very young, but I think when he goes back to New York City, he'll go, oh, this place. And that's kind of how I feel about it.
Now,
I've been living in New Orleans for 14 years, and there's my hometown of Minneapolis. There's where I've lived for 14 years, and there's a couple other places that are really interesting to me. New York City was too expensive for me, so I moved to New Orleans, where it's like a mini situation because there's so much culture, and that's what I thrive on.
Now, considering there were 4 bands on the bill and everybody's time is certainly cut a bit short, what can fans expect from the Soul Asylum set during these specific Summerland shows?
Well, we are expecting to not have as much time as usual, so that's a little rough for us. We have to sort of, streamline the set. So I think that the person that's a real serious fan that really comes to a lot of shows might feel like the set's too short. And the whole idea is that you come and you get to see all these bands play, and everybody's playing half-hour sets. So if you can imagine what after this band being around for, can't even remember, 30 odd years, if I got to streamline that into a half an hour set, hopefully whatever it is going to be really good, and I think what we'll probably do is try to play about half the set that's about the same, which is kind of Soul Asylum standards, if you will, and the other half will switch it up enough to make it interesting, so that we're not punching the clock and playing a half hour of the same thing 47 days in a row. That's the part of music that makes me move to New Orleans and want to hear bebop and improvisation and not singing. So it's all in there. We'll make it interesting, and I do talk to the band about this a lot. Just about how I didn't come to music in a way that had a pretense, and I don't really register with it as being a job. So, like, my new bass player works on Broadway. He's not my new bass player anymore. He's been with me for quite a while, and he just gets it, you know. He understands that you do certain things at a certain time, and you play all the fucking right notes. I mean, he's just a badass. I don't think he's ever been in a punk band proper, like Soul Asylum at times has just been, you know, chaos. Just terrible. This is an awful organization that doesn't know what it's doing. And, you know, that part of it is where, you know, professional punk rock is an oxymoron, you know. It cannot exist. So somehow the two elements are always fighting each other. And, you know, that's the crossroads of art and commerce and all those other crazy things that, you know, you sort of come across and you make your decisions as you go along. As you're going along, you got to do what you got to do, you know. So some people put more emphasis on paying the rent, and other people put more emphasis on, you know, getting on stage and improvising and doing performance art and doing things that are more daring and pay less. I think I'm making sense.
Last year, the band's most recent release, No Fun Intended, was a 3-song EP, came out in July. That sort of seems to be the way that bands are shifting as opposed to full-length albums. Do you think that's the wave of the future, since people have been so conditioned to download, you know, one song here, one song there?
I don't know, man. It's funny. I was just thinking about that because I asked we got a new manager, and I said, well, should we even put out albums? And he said, a band like you, absolutely. And I guess that means it's conditional to who you are or what your angle is or where you come from or something. I had no idea what he was going to say, but I think what he is saying is you've always made albums, so that's what you should do. That's what you do. If somebody was starting out today, maybe they would think differently about it. And that's not even, you know, that's somebody else's opinion. At the same time, I can see why that's all part of some sort of experiment that you're asking me about, which is if people are going to listen to music on the computer, why would it matter what, you know, how many songs you release at a time? And it certainly does point back to, you know, Top of the Pops in England, you know. It's just, you just release singles. I mean, that nobody, now I say nobody very loosely, but it would appear that the shorter attention span that you demand of the music listener, you know, the less they're going to have time for. So I think that's fairly obvious. People are busy, and people, I was talking about this yesterday, people do grow out of music, so they do only have a certain window to hear so much shit in there. You know, so the casual listener becomes the, what do they call that? The meat and potatoes of what the place that New York and LA call the flyover zone, you know, where all the people are. You know, those are people that, you know, listen to music at varying degrees of seriousness. And I did not have any intention other than to fuck around, I mean, mess around with the internet by going, okay, what if we put out one song? What if we put out 3 songs? And this is supposed to be a thing that comes out like every 6 months, which was kind of a project between me and my ex-manager, so the ball was dropped. But we recorded some more things for this particular project, and it remains to be seen if we follow through. So I think it was interesting, and I mean the most interesting thing about that to me is that we tried to put a single out for our last record, and we just put it out on the internet and just to see if, you know, if it made any impression at all. And then we went and played in Brazil, and everybody knew about it. So it didn't have any impact in America, but for some reason, in Brazil, everybody was coming up to me going, "Oh, I heard your new song. Let's all kill each other. That's so cool." And I was really surprised. And, God, I didn't see that coming. So I guess maybe when people say there's a reason to put something on the internet, maybe that's it. Because, you know, who knows where they're going to pick it up, and it could be anywhere. But it's just a way for people to get their information in hubs where they can't get it any other way. So to that effect, I find it really fascinating, or really sad, that there's not, you know, a Ma and Pa record store in Brazil where people can go buy a Soul Asylum record. I mean, I'm not crying right now, but maybe there used to be, you know.
Yeah, I think Brazil's really sort of a microcosm of how it is everywhere. I mean, even in New York City, LA, there's no record stores, there's no rock radio. All there is now is pretty much iTunes and Amazon.
And it doesn't seem quite right to me in a way that, or, you know, I am a Luddite, but I'm not afraid of the future, and I don't think that it's, you know, all bullshit or anything like that. I just, you know, I do think that maybe the people that are distributing the music should not be tech people. I think that's a little weird, you know. I feel like Steve Jobs kind of outwitted the entire music industry, and, you know, for everything that the music industry did wrong, there was a lot of people that were passionate about music involved. And, you know, I'm not sure who's running the iStore, but, you know, it's where I've been told that I'm supposed to be selling records, you know, which I've never done an in-store at the iStore, but, you know what I mean? I've spent so much time in record stores that is really precious time, that is really memories of finding things and talking to people and meeting people and being present. And, you know, you can say that about anything about the internet. I mean, the presence of you being somewhere is always going to be what's lacking, and it's always going to be much cooler if you get off your ass and go to a fucking record store, you know. So they had Record Store Day recently, and people sound hopeful, you know, and that's interesting. The kids that want LPs are going to buy LPs no matter what Steve Jobs or Bill Gates say about the music industry, you know, and how easy it is to just go, God, you know, this music doesn't even take up very many megabytes, so why go through all the trouble of printing it on a hard piece of plastic? You know, some of it makes sense, but a lot of it is really up for grabs right now. I don't see a business model that is working for the music industry that is fun or interesting or constructive, I guess. But again, you know, it's cool. I just bought a phonograph, like a Victorola, and it really sounds great. And a young person was listening to it the other day and saying, it sounds creepy, which I thought was really an interesting word, because to them, it sounded like something that was coming out of the past, like a ghost. And it's kind of what it is. It's kind of the sound of a needle hitting an old 78, which sounds so different than music coming out of a phone, you know, and that's what I start to hate, is when people are asking me to listen to music coming out of their iPhone and thinking that that's a reasonable way to listen to music. And that's a shame, you know, because you really do miss a lot. I mean, an MP3 is one thing, and a teeny tiny speaker is another. But I mean, it just degrades and degrades and degrades until I don't really want to listen to it anymore, and that's okay. That's just because I'm a muso or a fucking, I don't know what they used to call them. They used to call them audiophiles. Guys that like to, have big stereo speakers and stuff.
Dave, with so many years in the music business, how have your own personal music interests changed as you've evolved, and do you think that's reflective in your approach to songwriting?
Yes and no. I mean, I grew up as a trumpet player, and I learned the ins and outs of, I played in a youth symphony orchestra, and I played in a they called it stage band. I don't know why, but it's more of a, modern jazz combo thing in high school. And 14 years ago, I moved to New Orleans, which the stretch between the music that I was playing in high school and the music that it pretty much comes from here. So, what am I talking about? What do I listen to? I've always been more interested in music than interested in certain styles of music, if you will. So it's been pretty seamless for me to go full circle and come back to, I want to be in New Orleans where they have all this pre-rock and roll music so I can understand the roots of modern American music, and I can live amongst the living history of Fats Domino, and I love the Meters and how the Meters are a four-piece band, and so are the Beatles. And somehow those two kinds of music seem disparate, but they have a lot more in common than they are different. And it's the way that the players play, and the living history in New Orleans, to me, is still the roots of rock and roll, absolutely. And the street parade has a lot more to do with how we hear modern American music than just about anything I can think of. I mean, all the folk ethics of bringing music from, classical and country to what we understand as popular music today, so much of it was funneled through New Orleans. And that's why I'm here, because my musical life has come full circle, and I love all kinds of music, and I love that it's such a young phenomena, where you can still cite and see at least videos of Jimi Hendrix and Elvis and all these people that, kind of became this thing that, frankly, I'm just humbled to be involved with. So, when a band like Cage the Elephant comes along, it seems a little bit closer to what I'm doing than Foster the People, but they still both seem like, kind of like 3 or 4 or 5 guys that or girls or whatever. They kind of, to that effect, I keep up with it, and it never confuses me. I can watch Skrillex and go, well, I understand it, and that's because I keep up with it, and I I may not be able to master that kind of technology, but I know what it is. So it's like I know that he's using a certain amount of programs, like I know that when I'm watching a jazz combo, one thing is called a trombone and one thing is called a saxophone. And so it's knowing all the elements and knowing how they fit together and seeing how people put them together differently that makes it thrilling, and that will never change. I mean, I think I can always count on that. Just the simple rearrangement of the basic elements. If you go from Fats Domino to Lil Wayne here in New Orleans, you can say those are two completely different kinds of music, or you can say those are New Orleans music. Because to me they are, So people say this is traditional New Orleans jazz. It is not Dixieland music. That is for white people. You know, there's little weird things where New Orleans music, and one of them's not necessarily what I come from, which is more like, you know, from Minnesota, where Bob Dylan is from, and where Eddie Cochran is from, and where fucking, you know, whoever, Husker Du is from. There's this, it's full of electric guitars, where New Orleans is full of trombones and trumpets, and, you know, I've had enough of just about everything that is tedious about music, and, you know, that's the great lesson, that you can choose. You don't have to have music forced on you, and you don't have to waste your hate going, I can't stand that kind of music, and, you know, this radio station's terrible, and this, that, and the other thing. You know, flip the channel, go to a record store, do whatever, but music is what I'm about, and I love it, and that's, I just can't get enough of it, you know.
Dave, you've been so gracious with your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to leave for the readers of New York City's localbozo.com?
No, just that, you know, I just love playing and being in New York because it's a music city, and, you know, I consider it to be someplace it's a very important place to play, because I just love the people that come to the show. It's always that. It always feels really, really good to me. I get a great feeling from New York crowds, and I'm very thankful for that, and I hope it always stays that way. I'm knocking on wood.
Fans, you can catch Dave Pirner and the rest of Soul Asylum as they embark on the 2014 Summerland Tour. It's Eve 6, Space Hog, Soul Asylum, and Everclear, Tuesday, June 17th here at New York City's Irving Plaza. The bands have dates lined up through August, so catch them when they come to your city. You can also download Soul Asylum's latest 3-song EP, No Fun Intended, released last July, wherever you get your rock music. And we've had the pleasure of speaking with Dave Pirner. Always thought-provoking, always speaks his mind. Dave, can't wait to see Soul Asylum when they come to New York City, my friend. All the best of luck on tour this year.
All right, take it easy, man.